their colors dimmed by centuries of dust. The light of his candle made the paint shimmer faintly, as though the saints were breathing again. He passed under an archway where an inscription in Latin read, Tempus tacitum, pax eterna. When time is silent, peace is eternal. The air grew cooler the deeper he went into the abbey's heart. He could hear it now, a faint, measured sound, like the heartbeat of the ancient building itself. Tick, tick, tick. It came from behind an old oak door, its surface carved with the symbol of the sun. Brother Alden pressed his palm against it. The wood felt warm, as though a gentle fire burned behind it. He pushed it open, and the hinges groaned, like an old voice awakening from a long slumber. Inside was a chamber he had never seen before. The room was round, its walls lined with worn tapestries and shelves of half-forgotten relics. But at its center stood something beautiful, second clock. It was larger than his own, crafted of silver and crystal, its face adorned with the 12 symbols of the zodiac. The pendulum was shaped like a sunburst, and every graceful movement caught the light in a delicate shimmer. Brother Alden stepped closer, his breath shallow with wonder. He could tell by the craftsmanship was far older than his work, perhaps from the time the abbey was first built, and yet it was still working. He watched it for a long while, completely entranced by the way the gears turned in perfect quiet. There was something strange about its rhythm. Rhythm was slower than his own clock upstairs, almost as if it were measuring something deeper than mere seconds and minutes. He reached out and gently brushed a finger across the rim of the casing. The metal was cool, and a tiny spark of light danced beneath his touch. A small engraving caught his eye. He bent closer to read it. The words were delicate, nearly faded away. When two clocks breathe together, the world forgets to hurry. He smiled softly, his eyes shining in the candlelight. So that was it. This clock had waited all these years for its twin to awaken. And now, with both ticking, the abbey would live in harmony once more. Brother Alden bowed his head. He whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude, his voice trembling just a little. For all things that move in patience, for all hours that pass in peace. The flame of his candle flickered. He turned back toward the corridor, the sound of both clocks following him now, one golden, one silver, each heartbeat folding into the other like a soft, harmonious duet. He thought of the monks who had lived here before him, those who had prayed and dreamed and listened to the silence. Perhaps they too had heard these sounds and understood what they meant. He smiled to himself. Maybe, he thought, this was how eternity sounded, not an endless, empty silence, but a perfect, unending rhythm. As he climbed the stone steps toward his workshop again, light pooled around him, a slow, gentle glow that grew brighter with every heartbeat. By the time he reached the top, the morning mist had lifted. Through the arched window, he could see the valley-green fields shining with dew, and the distant curve of the river like a silver ribbon. The village rooftops caught the sunlight, and smoke from hearths rose lazily into the crisp air. He placed a candle on the bench and sat once more before his clock. He could hear both, now his own and the hidden one, their rhythms weaving together like two voices in a sacred prayer. He rested his hands on the table, closed his eyes, and breathed. Tick, tick, tock, peace, peace, peace. And for the first time in many years, Brother Alden did not feel alone. The abbey breathed with him. The clocks whispered with him. The morning, gentle and slow, carried his thoughts into a state of perfect stillness. He whispered, his voice barely audible. Time is awake, and so am I. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into a quieter world. If this story brought you a moment of peace, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more tales that explore the gentle rhythms of life. It helps our small community grow. Until next time, may your days be filled with peace. The sun climbed higher above the abbey, casting long threads of light through the windows. Dust drifted lazily in the beams, turning each ray into a slow-moving river of gold. Brother Alden watched the particles swirl and fall, thinking of them as tiny fragments of time each, one descending at its own pace, never rushed, never lost. The abbey had begun to wake. A few of the younger monks passed through the corridor, their sandals whispering against the ancient stones. They paused when they heard the ticking, their eyes wide with a sort of quiet wonder. and then continued on in silence. No one had heard clocks in this place for decades. Some of the older brothers even said that time had stopped here on purpose, that the abbey existed in a space between minutes, a refuge for weary souls who needed stillness. And perhaps they were right, for even as life returned, the air remained soft, slow, as though every sound knew how to rest. Brother Alden's thoughts wandered to the one who had first built the abbey's clocks. He remembered the old record's faded letters, sealed in wax, mentioning a craftsman named Lucien de Calais. Lucien traveled from France in the late 1200s, bringing with him the design for a machine that could, as he put it, count the breath of God. Lucien was said to be half monk, half tinkerer, man who believed that every gear had a soul, and that the smallest wheel could echo a prayer if placed just so. He built the first clock, not for kings or wealthy merchants, but for monks who lost track of time while praying. His hope was not to measure the day, but to remind them that even silence moves forward. Brother Alden liked that thought. He imagined Lucien sitting much as he did now, a candle at his side, a table scattered with bits of brass and threadbare parchment. He could almost see his fingers, blackened with oil, his mind steady and calm. He imagined the sound, the very first tick, echoing through these same halls, a single drop of rhythm falling into an ocean of quiet. It was a beautiful, profound idea. Outside, the air shimmered with warmth. The trees along the edge of the abbey courtyard moved gently, their leaves murmuring secrets to the wind. Alden stepped to the window and rested his hand on the cool stone sill. He could see the garden below, rows of herbs, mint, and sage, their scent rising faintly even from this height. He whispered a small blessing to the plants, just as he had been taught. Grow slow and grow kind. As he turned back, a glint of sunlight caught on the edge of the brass pendulum. It shimmered like a drop of liquid fire. The clock's steady movement seemed to fill the room with invisible threads of sound, each one weaving a soft rhythm that joined the breath of the abbey itself. And then, something curious happened. He heard footsteps behind him, slow, even, careful. He turned. At the doorway stood another monk, Brother Thomas, tall and slender, his robes the color of aged parchment. His expression held both reverence and disbelief. "So it's true," Thomas whispered, his voice barely stirring the air. "The clock has woken." Alden nodded, a gentle smile on his face. He motioned for him to come closer. Thomas approached the bench, his eyes wide, and for a long while they both simply listened. Tick-tock, tick-tock. It was a sound that was both new and ancient. Finally, Thomas spoke again. "I remember the abbot telling us," he murmured, "that the Abbey of St. Alaric once measured not just hours, but the seasons of the heart. When the bell rang, people said it could soothe a fever or calm a storm." Alden smiled faintly. "I believe it still can," he said. "Peace is contagious. It moves like sound." They stood together in the golden quiet, watching the pendulum's slow, graceful arc. Then Thomas pointed to the second-hander, tiny silver star turning gently near the center of the face. "It's moving slower than it should," he said softly, almost as if it were breathing. Alden nodded again. "Yes," he whispered. "It keeps the abbey's time, not the world's." Thomas looked around the workshop, his eyes tracing the old walls, the candles, the scattered tools. "It feels different in here," he said, "like the air itself listens." And he was right. Every sound seemed softened, each tick melting into the next like drops of honey. Even their own breathing had synced to the rhythm. Inhale on the tick, exhale on the toke. It was a living, breathing quiet. After a while, Thomas bowed his head and left in silence, his steps fading down the corridor, leaving Alden once more with the gentle sound. Brother Alden watched the doorway for a moment, then returned to his bench. He began winding the clock slowly, the metal key turning with a soft, satisfying rasp. He could feel the smooth resistance as the spring tightened, a pulse building within the brass casing. He stopped before it was fully wound. Just enough, he thought, to let the day unfold gently. As he set the key aside, he felt the smallest tremor beneath his fingertips, as though the clock itself had sighed in contentment. He whispered, "You're alive, aren't you?" And in answer, the pendulum swung just a little faster, catching the sunlight. throwing small